Hello all, I hope this video finds you well. Hope you're maintaining the healthy social distancing and vigorous hand washing because we are certainly still in the midst of this pandemic. I want everyone out there to stay safe and healthy. So today I'm going to be taking a look at the CDC data. Specifically, I'll provide an update on the date of onset, which is the chart that you're looking at right now. That's the chart that I showed you a few days ago. But I also have some additional interesting data that I hope you'll find informative. So let's go ahead and just jump right in. All right. Okay, so the current number of cumulative cases being reported by the CDC as of yesterday at 4 p.m. is 140,904. So, and you know, as you can see in this chart, just still steadily climbing up this hill. You know, this chart can be expected to rise very rapidly, and then it will form kind of an S eventually. So eventually this rate of growth will slow and eventually will plateau. So it will form an S. The question is where. So let's take a look at the growth rate. So obviously we have a lot of chaos here on the, the blue is the percentage change versus the prior day. A lot of this is because early on there was you know, the reporting was really spotty, and you know, not all states were doing, you know, very good testing and all that kind of stuff. So you've seen this volatility kind of smooth out a little bit towards the end here, and I think that's because the result of much more testing going on. So this orange line attempted to smooth the data. So this is the growth rate over 3 days. It's the average percentage change daily over the last 3 days. So you can see that it started off, obviously, this was around the 1st of March, and it was very high, and it remained high, and over the last few days it has declined. The growth rate has declined somewhat, and obviously any decline in that number we'll be very happy about. But just to give you some perspective on this blue line, if it were to continue at, that's about 15%. 15% is still very fast, especially, you know, remember this is daily. So at 15%, we could expect the cumulative number of cases to double in 5 days. So just to give you some perspective, 15 seems lower when you're comparing it to 50, but it's still not a good number. We certainly want that to go down and eventually hit 0, hopefully sooner rather than later. Okay, so going back to this chart, this is if you saw my prior video, you'll know that you'll remember what this is about, but this is the number of COVID-19 cases in the United States by date of onset. Okay, so all of these bars can have additional cases added. It just depends on, you know, if someone reports on this day and they report that they first started having symptoms on March 16th, then it's going to go in this bar right here. So let's show you the and I wanted to mention there's some weird first and foremost, the CDC doesn't update the date of illness onset numbers over the weekend. So on Saturday and Sunday there were no updates, and then when I got the numbers today, I saw some really strange items like negative numbers. I don't know what is going on here. I don't know if the CDC is realizing, like, okay, actually we thought they had an onset on a certain day and it was actually a different day. I haven't been keeping track of the numbers to know if this is occurring very much, but the good news is later on in the data, I'm not really sure, these little -1 moves are really going to be meaningfully distorting the data later on when, you've got hundreds of cases being added. So let's take a look. This is the chart as I showed you on March 26th. So if you see down here, this legend right here, well, I just sort of messed up that color. But anyway, well, the point being, as this goes from white to bright blue, it's cases that were reported on that day. So the white were reported on March 23rd, the blue were reported on March 26th, but they had obviously onset prior to March 26th. So what I did here is I just made a little bit of room. Okay, so this is the same chart. I've just expanded the y-axis here to make room for the new data that is going to that was just reported on Monday. Okay. So the orange is the data that was reported on Monday. You can see there were a ton of new cases that were reported on Monday. And, we actually have a date of illness onset all the way back to January. So it's interesting. Again, you'll remember that I'll show you. I'll go back and show you this. This section right here says illnesses that began during this time may not yet be reported. So you would think that this is I think 319 where they're saying that. You would think that there wouldn't be just a whole lot of cases if in this part of the graph that are being reported currently if they believe that this is where the onset is likely to be in the new cases. So I'm still not sure what's going on with that, but going back. Okay, so the orange is the new data that was just reported. I think one of the key things that I would like to point out here, you see that on the first reporting day when I kept track of this, the peak was on March 23rd. I'm sorry, not March 23rd. This was March 13th. And as we go forward, because the newer cases are going to have onset, more likely to have illness onset later as they're reported later, you see that on March 26th, the peak was on March 15th, okay? And then after the weekend, the new peak is March 16th. So we can expect that peak to continue to move into the future. And again, we have just, huge growth. Like for instance, you see right here, this chart, this bar right here was, just, I would say that looks like it's a quadruple in cases that were reported to have had an onset on that day. So I don't see us out of the woods at this point at all. And I do expect, on the next couple of days, the peak will probably be somewhere out here. So, and this is what we'll start from the next time I report this data. All right, this is the logarithmic chart. Again, the reason I like to look at this is because I like to see how the rate of change is essentially changing. And for each of these lines, so you'll see that each of these lines is a doubling. So right now, these new cases, and keep in mind these are new cases. So when you have a doubling of new cases, that means that it's actually, the growth is actually accelerating, which is not very not good. Obviously, when we start to see this peak and come back down, that's when that S curve is going to start slowing and eventually plateauing. And so, unfortunately, this right here is around March 16th, and we're still seeing, doubling roughly every 5 days, and that's in the new cases. So definitely not good. All right. This is the next thing I wanted to show you. Okay, I found some great data that's from all the states. So I'm going to try to show you a new statistic each day and show you how the different states are doing with that statistic. So this map right here shows you all of the confirmed cases as of March 30th. And the maximum, I'm sure that you've probably heard in the news, New York has the most cases of any state. In fact, they have, I don't know the exact number, but somewhere around I think we have 66,000. So they have over they have nearly half of all of the cases in the U.S. So this chart shows each state is colored in proportion to, it's basically what percentage of New York cases, and that's how red that state would be colored. So obviously nowhere is remotely close to New York. So what I did is I decided that we would take the second highest state, which is New Jersey, at 16,636, and now all the states are colored in percentage of New Jersey. So you see there's a lot of cases out there, but New York and New Jersey are exceptionally bad. We have a lot of cases in California, and you can tell where it's highly populated areas that are tending to show up here. With we got Chicago here. We have Michigan is doing kind of bad. Florida, but I don't really like this way of looking at it because, of course, a place like California has an incredibly high population, so it would just sort of make sense that they would have a high number of cases, and I'm not sure if it's really informative to, as far as looking at how perhaps a state is doing relative to other states, to just look at it on a basis of case numbers alone. So what I'd like to do is look at that versus population. Okay, now this is cases per million population. Okay, so obviously New York and New Jersey are still bad. This is New York has 3,427 cases per million population. That may sound like a lot, but I would just remind you that 3,427 per million is actually only 0.3%. So there's still a ton of people that can get sick, and obviously that's terrible. But the reality is, I don't think that we are anywhere close to the end of this. I hate to say it. Certainly, cases that are taking strict measures to limit the spread are certainly helping, but I don't think that we're anywhere close. And I wanted to also look at this as a percentage of New Jersey again, because New York just sticks out so much. We don't really see the states as well, so the states don't pop out as much relative to New York because New York is just such an outlier. So this is as a percentage of New Jersey, and you can see that nowhere is immune. Everywhere has cases. Some are worse than others. one of the hot spots that's beginning to show up, and this is part of the reason I like this view so much, is Louisiana. We've come to learn that Mardi Gras basically was just a perfect storm for spreading this virus, which is just, really sad, but it's the reality. So, and Louisiana is definitely already encountering difficulty as far as infrastructure with managing the number of patients they have, and very, very bad situation there. So the next look at this, I wanted to show y'all how this has been changing over time. Because I have the data, I thought, well, let me give that a shot, and we'll just kind of see how this thing has been spreading over time. So we're going to be looking at this as a percentage of New Jersey on March 30th. Okay, so you'll see these colors get darker as time goes on. But the first reported case on January 22nd was in Washington, so that's where this animation is going to start. So I'll go ahead and get that going. All right, this is doing 1 day per half second. So you'll start to see cases develop. You see we have cases in California, Arizona, Washington, Illinois. We're going to have start to see some cases developing in the Northeast, and then very quickly it'll start to see this fill in. Now, part of this is due to there just wasn't much testing being done. So once the testing started rolling out, it just became clear that the virus is everywhere. So here I slowed it down a little bit so that you could see the change as it was happening, and then now we get to this this final slide here. So you see. There's again, no state is immune. It's in Alaska, it's in Hawaii, it's everywhere. We see that New York and New Jersey are very, very hard hit. We see that Louisiana is a new hot spot, which is pretty unnerving when I'm a Texas resident, so being next door to Louisiana, I'm not exactly sure how long it's going to be before we start seeing the effects here in Texas. And hopefully, people are social distancing. Hopefully people are staying at home, and it can limit the ability for the virus to spread. So I will be, like I said earlier, I'm going to be taking a look at some other statistics that I think are also interesting with regard to how the states are faring, and also things like with cases, we have some. The problem with the cases data is there wasn't a whole lot of testing, so I'm going to be looking at deaths, which I hate to even think about it, but it's a little bit harder to hide, or not really hide. Hide is the wrong word, but deaths don't fly as much under the radar. So I'm going to be looking at deaths and seeing if we can glean any information from that, and I'm going to be looking at some growth rates as well in the coming days. So if you found this interesting, please go ahead and like the video and hit the subscribe button. And if you think other people would be interested, please share it. And I will be bringing you some very interesting information in the future. So I hope you enjoyed, and have a nice day, and stay safe out there. Thank you so much.